Richard Wagner lived from 1813 to 1883. He was born in a German principality, and you can remember this fact simply by looking at his name. Just remember that the last 5 letters of Wagner, with the addition of an M, can be used to spell the word German. Hey, if you turn the W upside down, you will thus have an M, and you can then spell the word German with the letters. Although Wagner composed in other genres, he wrote a symphony, a number of songs, etc., he is known primarily as a composer of operas. His early career provided him with the knowledge and the experience that he needed to compose operas, for he focused on editing and conducting operas during this time, activities that required him to know every detail of the operas with which he was dealing. He was the last great composer to work as a court musician for any substantial time, so he marks an important milestone in music history and in our examination of Western composers. He seems an unlikely court musician, though, for he was so passionate about the cause of German unification, that is, bringing together 100-some German principalities into one great German nation-state, that he became an active political revolutionary, one who actually sought the overthrow of German princes, including his own employer. As a result of his failed activities in this realm, he spent 13 years in exile in Switzerland, the traditional safe haven of Europe. This time away from the German principalities and from conducting operas provided him with the opportunity to think deeply about opera, and during this time he produced his Manifesto for Operatic Reform, a book that has a seemingly redundant title, Opera and Drama. Wagner, however, did not see opera as other composers up to his time did, that is, merely as a drama set to music. In fact, he thought that an opera really ought to be a Gesamtkunstwerk. This term is a combination of 3 German words, and it literally means entire or integral art work. And this concept required far more effort of composers than they normally exerted in the creation of such works. Basically, most opera composers simply set the libretto to music. Wagner's plan for creating a Gesamtkunstwerk, however, requires the composer to take total control of every element of opera, including the libretto, the music, the staging, the costumes, and the scenery, each of which traditionally was handled by a separate specialist, the libretto by a poet, the music by a composer, etc. Wagner, however, was ready to transgress traditional boundaries in creating what he called his music dramas, and he was the very first composer ever to write his own libretti. His operas have subjects that either were in style at the time, there was a strong nostalgia for the Middle Ages during the 19th century, or of special interest to him. He saw the potential of German legends as a unifying force in the German-speaking world, so the majority of his music dramas, as he called his operas, had medieval, mostly Germanic subjects. His commitment to the concept of the Gesamtkunstwerk and to Germanic legends brought him to the attention and eventually earned him the patronage of someone who shared his broad artistic vision and his preferred subject matter, King Ludwig II of Bavaria, a monarch remarkable both for his hobby, castle building, in the medieval style, of course, and for the degree of control that he exerted over every detail of his magnificent creations. Ludwig's support enabled Wagner to create a venue in which the composer could realize his grand visions, the Festspielhaus in the Bavarian city of Bayreuth, an opera theater that was constructed expressly for the purpose of presenting Wagner's operas, and one that was to exert a strong influence on the design and the use of theaters and concert halls from that time forward. The Festspielhaus, among the most famous theaters in the world, became and still remains a place of pilgrimage for Wagnerites, the self-professed enthusiast of his operas, many of whom even cross oceans to attend performances of his musical dramas there each year. Wagner, thus, was a cult figure during his lifetime, and he remains one today, 120-some years after his death. He was the director of the theater during his lifetime, and after his death its administration became a family enterprise. The direction of the Festspielhaus in Bayreuth passed to his wife, then to his son, then to his daughter-in-law, and then to his grandsons, and today the theater is still directed by his last surviving grandson. Wagner's operas certainly are remarkable for their detail and their scale, and they stand apart from those by other composers of his time in several particulars. We have already noted his preferred subject matter, and you should know that most of his operas have medieval subjects and that many of those are Germanic. Wagner's music dramas are not for the faint of heart, for many of them take about 4 to 5 hours to perform. Wagner, who subordinated every element of opera to the cause of drama, offers his audiences little in the way of vocal display, for his mature music dramas contain no real arias. Indeed, the texture of these works sets them well apart from the mainstream of 19th century operatic composition. It might be described as consisting of almost continuous recitative with sections of arioso. In fact, aside from some of his choruses and short solo sections that represent actual songs that are specified as such in the drama itself, that is, a song that is an integral element of the plot, there are few extended solo passages that approach what one might call a real song. In fact, Wagner does little to promote vocal display of any sort, for his dense orchestration tends to overpower the voices. This probably accounts for the evolution of the so-called Wagnerian singer, something akin to the stereotypical opera singer who seems more to bellow than to sing. In terms of at least one compositional technique, though, Wagner is solidly in the mainstream of 19th century musical aspiration, for his sprawling music dramas are unified throughout by leitmotifs. You can clearly see the word motive, which you know is a short musical idea, in leitmotif, and the first syllable, leit, comes from the German word that means to direct or to guide. A leitmotif, thus, is a guiding motive, basically a short musical idea that serves some sort of guiding function. Indeed, there is nothing new about the leitmotif, for it is similar in concept to Berlioz's idée fixe, a device that we encountered in that composer's Symphonie Fantastique. In fact, both an idée fixe and a leitmotif are musical ideas that are associated with a particular person, thing, etc. Leitmotifs serve two important functions in telling the stories of his music dramas. They are most often used to underscore events of the plot, basically when a certain person, thing, etc. is mentioned or appears in the course of the drama, the leitmotif associated with that person, thing, etc. is heard. Leitmotifs are also used to predict events of the plot, a phenomenon that is clearly illustrated in the scene from a Wagner opera that we shall examine in some detail.